So welcome to this video tutorial in which we are going to create this 3D logo intro using the Element 3D plugin. As I mentioned, we will be using the Element 3D plugin and the TrueComp duplicator in this tutorial. I've included a link in the description for the TrueComp duplicator, so you can head there, download and install, and then come back and join us. Now to begin, we are going to create a new composition. I'll leave the name as comp1, width and height 1920 by 1080, duration 5 seconds. Next, we head into import and then bring in our files. I have my logo, texture, and TechHard. And click and drag and drop these into your comp1. Now let's individually, or let's just resize the logo. To say 12. And now let's hide all of them. Just leave the logo. Right click and then let's pre-compose and name it logo. Move all attributes into a new composition. Click OK. Now with the logo pre-comp still selected, we head up to layer at the top and look for auto trace. In the options, make sure we are on alpha. Tolerance can be 1 pixels. Threshold, we can leave it at 50. Corner roundness 0, and make sure invert is not selected. Then we click OK. Next, we create a new layer or a new solid, and we can name this element. Then we head up to Effect, look for Video Copilot, and select Element. Still with the element layer selected, head up to Effect Controls, come down to Custom Layers, and under Custom Text and Mask, for part 1, we select Logo. And under Custom Texture and Maps, we add our old metal texture for layer 1, and layer 2 we add the TechHard. Come down to your timeline and then now hide the logo composition. Select the element and let's go to Scene Setup. Now the first thing we need to do is extrude. So let's click on extrude, and then there we have our logo. Now let's head down to the extrusion model options and look for tessellation and change it from high to extreme. We now head up to bevel copies and change it from 1 to 2. Now we head to the bottom left corner, look for presets and look for our materials. And under materials, we look for Pro Shaders. Look for physical. There's physical here. And let's look for black outline. First, drop down the bevels under extrusion model. Select black outline. Drop it on bevel 1. and then we select gold and drop that on bevel 2. Now we select the black outline bevel, this one, and change the extrude size down here from 1 to 0.2. That will bring out the gold. And select the gold beveled and change its extrude size from 1 to 0.3. And we change the bevel size from 0.50 or whatever figure you have there to 1.0. We add a Z offset of 0.3, and that gives us a separation between the gold and the black outline. Let's go ahead and rename this extrusion. Let's just add extrusion model 1, just like add a 1 to it. So with this done, let's create another extrusion. So just head up and click on extrude once again. And let's place this close to, use the Z axis to place it close to the black outline. Let's head into it and select the bevel. And in this case, we're going to load a texture. So we head down to the texture options, select diffuse, and drop down. And let's load a custom layer 2, which has the hard MP4. Click OK. Look for illumination. And then let's load the hard once again. Then let's head down to, under textures, we have basic settings. Let's select diffuse color. And I'm changing that to blue. So we have the blue showing here. Now under textures, let's head back into diffuse. And change the brightness from 0 to say 40. Click OK. And for the illumination, we do the same. Change it from 0 to 40. It seems our extrusion and the black outline is duplicating. So I'm going to click and drag my Z axis of the extrusion that we just created, the one at the top, and drag it to the opposite end. You can use the mouse button or the mouse scroll to zoom in and make sure it touches the gold. So we should have something like this. Now let's select the bevel under our extrusion model and head to settings. And let's change the blend mode from normal to screen. Now click on extrusion model and let's rename it. I'm renaming it to transparent. And we click OK. Now we select our extrusion model 1, right click, and then we see duplicate model. Select the duplicated one and let's rename it from extrusion model 1 to 2. Click OK. Now we use the Z axis to click and drag it back. Let's zoom in so that we ensure that it touches the transparent one, just like this. So we have this transparent one sandwiched in between extrusion model 1 and 2. Now we need to create a background. So let's head to create and select a plane. And let's make some changes to the size. I'll change the X to 10, or let's say 15, and the Y to 15 as well. Just under plane, under the plane option, we have transform, and under transform, we have orientation. Now let's make changes to the X axis by entering -90, and let's scroll forward a bit and make sure there's no gap between the plane and our logo. So still under the plane model, we head to the bevel and look for textures in the options, and under textures we look for glossiness, and then here we load our old metal texture and change the gamma to 0.5. Click OK. Let's head to the reflectivity just under glossiness and load the old metal texture once again. Reduce the gamma to 0.5, and let's increase the input reflectivity to 0.7, and click OK. Now the texture is not so visible, so let's add a diffuse as well. Yeah, when we add a diffuse, we see the texture and all that, but I need to reduce the gamma to say 0.4. It's quite visible. Now we can see that a bit of one of our extrusion models is beneath the plane, so I'm going to change that. We're going to make changes to that. So let's select it. So that's this one. Click on the Z and click and drag it so the blue outline also shows. Now, this means that we need to drag 2 forward a bit, and then the transparent as well. So we end up having something like this. And let's select the extrusion model 2, the one on top. Drop down the bevels, select the gold, and click on this option, bevel outline, and enable. So we should have something like this. Now let's head back up to our plane model. And look for UV repeat. Well, I'm going to change this to 5, 5 by 5. And let's click on the bevel and change the diffuse color from white to something darker. Click OK. I think this dark gray looks better. Let me disable the grid so we can see it better. So now let's go ahead and add a reflection to our plane. So right click on plane model, look for reflect mode. Let's change that to mirror surface. You realize that nothing has happened yet, so let's go to the bevel in the plane model, and under texture we take out the glossiness, and then we have the reflection now showing. You can also add an environment, so let's head up to environment here. And select one environment that comes with this. I'm going to select the default one that we just, this one. And increase the brightness to 20%. Then click OK. So now that we are done with our logo and background, let's click OK and head back to After Effects. Let's right click on the timeline and create a new camera. We can leave the name as camera 1 and change the preset to 50. Then we click OK. Now, in addition to the camera, let's create a null object. We will use a null object in changing the orientation, whilst we use the camera to change the object's position. So I'm going to pick the pick whip of the camera, this one, click and drag and drop it on the null object. So let's begin changing the position by selecting our camera, picking the dolly tool, this one. So I'm going to click and drag upwards, bring down P for position, click on my stopwatch, move forward to like say 4 seconds, and then with the same dolly tool, send my logo backwards. Just a little bit. I'm going to select the null object and click on this 3D icon to ensure that it's a 3D layer. Then I drop down my null objects, go into transform, and then we look for orientation. And then we click on the stopwatch with your timelines or your handle still on the 4-second mark. Click on the stopwatch for orientation. Bring your playhead back to 0. And let's tweak the orientation a little bit. Now, in the same way, I'm going to pick the dolly once again. Select the camera, pick the dolly, and further scroll up to something like this. So we end up having something like this. We can add some ease to the movement by selecting our key frames, right clicking, go to keyframe assistant and select easy ease. We can do the same for the orientation. Select the null layer, press U to drop down and show your keyframes. Select both keyframes. Right click or press F9, easy ease. Now let's head back into the Element 3D setup and make some slight changes. So we select our element layer and go into scene setup. We are supposed to have a tech card playing back in one of our materials like this. So let's fix that. We select the material, which is under the transparent. Select the bevel. And what we are going to do is increase the extrude from 1 to say 3. And so in so doing, it comes out in front. So let's make sure it's well placed. So I'll click and drag the Z a little bit backwards, not too much. Just like this. The reflection on the plane is also a bit too glossy. So let's try and blur that out a bit. Under the plane model, we select the bevel, which is the default. And on our textures, we go to normal bump and load our metal. Click on convert bump. And let's add a UV repeat of say 15 by 15. Yeah, so we have this blurriness there. Let's increase it to say 20 by 20 and click OK. Now let's click OK and head back into After Effects. And this time around, let's select the element layer once again and press Ctrl D to duplicate. Right click on the duplicated version, the one on top. Select blending mode and select screen. With the same element layer still selected, press T for opacity and bring down the opacity from 100 to 50. Now with our first comp complete, we can go ahead and create duplicates. And to do that, we go into our projects panel, head to window, come down to True Comp Duplicator, and when the UI opens, make sure increment is selected, and let's change the number of copies to 3, and ensure that update expressions is also selected. When you're done, we can close the interface. So now we have comp 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to repeat the process of changing the orientation and position of the camera and the null object respectively for comp 2, 3, and 4. So we double click comp 2 to open it and do the following changes. Select the null object and press U. And this time the orientation, we make changes to the x-axis. So let's just enter 300. And after 4 seconds, we delete what is here and change it to negative 150. Sorry. Now you select the camera layer, press U to drop down the position, delete the last keyframe, and we pick up the dolly, drag it back a little bit. So we want it to be at this position, as close as possible. We bring our playhead to the first keyframe, select the keyframe there, and let's pick the orbit around 2. And I'm going to click and drag to my left, as though we are starting from the surface. And I'm also going to pick the dolly to click and drag upwards so that it comes nearer a bit. And then I'll pick the orbit again, make some slight adjustments to the right. So that does it for comp 2. So I'm going to repeat the process with different settings for comp 3 and comp 4. Now let's combine all our comps under one main composition to form our animation. So I'm going to create a new composition and call it main with a duration of 20 or 25 seconds. That's cool. We'll click OK. Now I'm going to drag and drop all my duplicated comps into the main. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. and I'm going to rearrange them according to the ones that I want to appear first, second, third, and fourth. Now I'm going to add a background in a form of a shape. So I right click here and select new shape layer. I want the fill to be black, and I just want it to be a rectangle that will fill the entire stage. So I'm just going to double click on the rectangle tool here. Then we have this. Now click and drag the shape layer to the bottom, and we can rename it. I'm going to rename it BG for background. I'm going to add some transitions between each of the comps by reducing the opacity at the end of each comp. So at the end of my comp 4, I press T for opacity. Click on the opacity at 100. Bring the playhead to where the comp ends, and reduce the opacity from 100 to 0. Now there should be some space in between here so that, yes, it fades into the black background. So you have something fading into the black background. And then we select our next comp, in my case comp 1. Press T for opacity, 0, and then it moves into 100. Just some few frames inwards, not even up to a second. So if I scrub through, this is what I should have, and then this one comes in. So I'm going to repeat the process for the rest. So after rendering, this is what we end up with. You can add some text to the last comp to complete your logo animation. And with that, we've come to the end of this tutorial. If you have learned something new, kindly like and share this video. You can also leave all your requests and suggestions in the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new to this channel, because it goes a long way in helping create more content. So till we meet in our next After Effects tutorial, enjoy your holidays.